welcome. I'm Tom Darwood and I'm making this recording on Monday the 17th of November 2025. As you see, I'm dressed in this multicoloured suit to denote that I'm a true 21st century Joseph 77, to emulate the biblical Joseph who became a surrogate Prime Minister. But under divine guidance, he was able to feed all the people of Egypt and the surrounding nations through 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine, which I've described in other videos. I want to paint with a very broad brush why I call myself Joseph 77. And I've entered 8 parliamentary candidacies. Only in 2019 did I call myself Joseph 77 on the ballot sheet, in which 560 odd people gave me their vote. I couldn't understand why. 2 years later, I discovered that BBC Live gave me a great big coverage in their broadcast. I didn't know till 2 years after, so I was unable to use it in my campaign. That was the most important campaign of all, which I'll come to describe in another video. But I want to run very quickly through my life and how it reflects the biblical Joseph. And it's with a very broad brush, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of details to add with a very tiny brush. So I'll begin with a brief outline of my life with the Christian church as a Christian in a local church of England. And it wasn't a beautiful Norman church. It was a modern church where they had sliding doors to partition off when they opened it up for services. When they had it closed, it was used for recreational purposes. A dual-purpose church. Now, I took part in virtually every single activity that you can think of. As a Sunday school teacher, I visited elderly folk. I brought elderly folk to the church each week. I joined the choir. I was part of the men's group. I helped in the youth club. I raised a lot of money for the church through jumble sales in those days. But at the end of about 5 or 6 years, I felt there's more to being a Christian than all this activity. And I was led to a place which was run by a church army officer, a former church army officer, and I became part of the team. And they brought people from all over Essex to give them a refresher course in Christianity, to paint it very quickly, and I was part of that team. Now, I was there about 18 months to 2 years. Suddenly, tragically, the leader died suddenly, within a week or so of taking serious illness. And I was the only person precipitated into taking his place. And after only a few weeks, I've demonstrated how I've learned from the former church army officer how capable I was of taking over. Sadly, some misrepresentation of what I said was misread as taking a pass to his wife, his widow. So I was asked to leave the ministry. I left without explaining exactly what happened because it was too complex. I was a young man in my mid-20s and I had actually fallen in love about 2 years earlier, and it created enormous turmoil in my emotional humanity, and something I said was misinterpreted. I was then led to a beautiful farmhouse in Wiltshire where I was awoken early in the morning by a voice, and as I tried to get out of bed, I was restrained in a position not of my own will. Then this voice passed through my head into my heart and came out and said, "Complete the work which I had begun," which was woken by the words, "I will supply all your needs." It was then that I tried to get out of bed, thinking someone was in my room. Then I was restrained physically in a very awkward position. I'll always remember this, and I knew it wasn't my own doing. Then A warm glow came into my body, through my heart, through my head, and came out and hovered in front of my face, and then concluded with the words, "Complete the work which I had begun." I realized that this was Almighty God speaking to me in the English language. And for the first 7 years, I thought it meant revise the Book of Common Prayer. So I'm painting a huge picture, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the date that I want you to look at in my website called About is these three remarkable dates, which I won't explain now, they take too long. But it begins with the 1st of April 1972, when, as I was reading the Daily Telegraph with my father sleeping on his sofa as he normally does, having passed me the Daily Telegraph, which he always reads, I then was aghast that the week before Saturday, the 1st of April 1972, I made a very distinct prayer to Almighty God, asked him, "Are you leading me to revise the Book of Common Prayer?" The article in the Daily Telegraph, the centre pages next to the opinion, was all about the revision of the Book of Common Prayer. When I looked at that, I said to myself, that is an endorsement in providence that what I asked for the week early was exactly what God had in mind for me to revise the Book of Common Prayer. Now, as I finished reading that, I noticed the TV screen had muted, there was no sound, and there was a caption on the TV, the outline of a figure that sort of resembled a drawing that I made about 2 years before. And it remained there for about 20 minutes, which is a very long time, before it came out, and the programme was all about the papacy. Now, prior to that, when I finished reading that article, I said as an arrow prayer, just unconsciously, I said, Almighty God, are you indicating that you're going to make me ready to become a future Archbishop of Canterbury? That was a very quick prayer, nothing deep in thought, but intuitive, because the Book of Common Prayer was originally compiled by Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop of Canterbury, appointed by Henry VIII. And when this programme came up after I made that intuitive prayer, I was staggered. I believe then that God was also saying to me, I'm going to make you the future Pope also. And I put that to the back of my mind until 1999, from 1972, when I realised that that is where God is going to lead me to become not only the Pope, but also the Archbishop of Canterbury and the monarch, three figureheads into one person. Now, I think I'll end it there, ladies and gentlemen, because there's so much about me that people find complex. Can I just conclude that Joseph 77 is a figurehead, a spokesperson for my Trinitarian identity. And what is it that I can achieve in this Trinitarian identity? And I go very quickly, almost like a crow's flight, the shortest distance between A and B. My task is to reform Christian theology through the Bible. That is my chief task, which I've explained elsewhere. The second thing I can achieve is to reform the autocracy of a single prayer book into an indigenous prayer book in which we all participate as participants to make it more democratic. That practice of the written liturgy will lead to creating and sustaining the hymn book. And I've shown an example of 100 hymns in Songs of Faith, which links all these three attributes: the Bible, the prayer book, and the hymn book. So these three figures are meant to symbolize the collective values of Christianity within the orbit of Western civilization. So that is the best I can summarize it, ladies and gentlemen. It is not something I seek. It is something which is precipitated because I've been obedient throughout the 79 years of my life. The calling began on the 1st of April 1972, and up to this very day I can show you how a lineage line of development, unbroken, which will convince you that I can achieve these three things. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.